Mr. President, will I
Higgins, the Mayor of Kildare, Sean Power, and Cohen Municipal District, Aoife Breslin, have already formally welcomed the President here this morning on your arrival, and I acknowledge warmly the Guard of Honour provided by Oakley Nashunta and Nahere and Torrenta, organised by Kevin Carton, and give a lovely splash of colour to the proceedings here today. I would like to extend a warm welcome to the Mayor and the Cathaoirleach, to Deputies Hayden and members of the Oireachtas, and retired Teachtadála Jack Wall, to Councillors Dooley, Keighley, Power and other councillors here present. I acknowledge the presence of Chief Executive of Kildare County Council Peter Carey, Town Manager Niall Morrissey and County Librarian Marion Higgins. President, Kildare County Council recently carried out an extensive refurbishment of the Dominican Church and repurposed it as a library, and it really is a state-of-the-art building. And I have been asked by the County Librarian to extend a very warm welcome to you on another occasion when your diary allows. To Inspector Jim Malloy and to Sergeant Jim Bergen, to the members of the Methodist community in Bree Brophy and the committee of the Thai Community Arts Centre. To John McKenna and the many artists involved with Between Your Love and Mine Requiem, some of whom are with us today, and John will speak about that shortly. We are delighted that Jack L can also join us on this occasion. To recipients, family and friends of the Maid of Thai Plaque recipients who are sitting in the first 3 rows, and they've been given a little job that you'll hear about later on, you're very, very welcome back. Maybe the pressure was on the last time, but it's probably a little bit more on today because we're going to invite you on stage shortly. My name is Lucina Russell, and I'm the Arts Officer for Kildare County Council and a member of the Maid of Athy Plaque Committee, along with Cathaoirleach Aoife Breslin, with Patricia Berry, Dave Flaherty and of course Colin Walsh, who has tirelessly devised, researched and nurtured this wonderful project. President, on the last occasion that we shared a stage, it was in Thomond Park in Limerick in 2010, where you joined the Association of Local Authority Arts Officers and the Arts Council to celebrate 25 years since the appointment of the first arts officer in Ireland. You spoke enthusiastically about the role of local authorities in inspiring and enabling arts development at grassroots level. The Maid of Athy project is a perfect example of this. The project arrived on my desk through a motion to the members of Athy Municipal District by Councillor Mark Wall, and the project committee were greatly supported by the individuals and groups acknowledged on the plaques, but also by the premises owners where the plaques are placed, the Tidy Towns, the Civil Defence, led by Trish McNeila and Jimmy Byrne, and the Gardaí team here in Athy. A special mention to Sergeant James Bergen and Community Guard Sean O'Mahony, and a particular note of gratitude to the photographers and the videographers who have documented the events and who have extended this project to international audiences through social media, and also to the members of the public who have come out in their droves at all of the plaque unveilings, and the plaques are all outside, so you know, Irish weather, it's not always favourable, but the crowds have come nonetheless, and it's been truly wonderful. And much of this project has been carried out without fuss by dedicated volunteers, and I would like to warmly acknowledge that today. It is timely that we should have our president here today, who is also a poet, as today, some of you may know, is Poetry Ireland Day. And we have some of these, President, we have one of these for you. It's actually a little pop-up menu, and this is actually going to the staff and patients in Naas Hospital and in daycare centres around the county, but it's also a national project. And we're very proud that Kildare has a wonderful arts and health programme, and this is one of our initiatives here today. And I know there's another poetry project, We Are the Poets, and they're looking at the Curragh Fen today as well. President Higgins, we are indeed honoured with your presence here today and with your acknowledgement of the Made of Athy music project. Can I now invite poet and Uachtarán Héireann, Michael D. Higgins, to address you.
I just want to say that it's a great pleasure to be here, and as I have just said, I want to thank you for the very warm reception. Not only inside here, but also the people outside, and very particularly the former servicemen, and I was so pleased to see Galway Slope. I thanked them. And it's very great pleasure as well to see not old colleagues, former colleagues. Our friend Jack and his son Mark, and also Sean, who I know for a long time, and so many others, and all the councillors as well. In the present atmosphere, I wish you all well. But may I say, and it will be a pleasure later to hear the magnificent Jack music I know for a long time. Now, it's a very real pleasure to be here today for the unveiling of a plaque dedicated to Leonard Cohen, and indeed to be a presentation of replica plaques later. Leonard Cohen is an artist who has left a profound footprint on our musical landscape and on the tradition of song, and it is without doubt one of the finest examples of the poet-songwriter in the history of contemporary music. So I want to congratulate Colin Walsh and the team behind Made of Athy initiative, which is such a strong and contemporary example of Irish community-led activism. And I was so agreed with your arts officer that it's a very practical application of what I was speaking about in 2010. It celebrates people who've links to the town and who've achieved international acclaim in the music industry. The project celebrates the sense of place in the town, the sense of community, and as many of the recipients of the award will have said as the plaques were unveiled, a sense of belonging. For it is one of the primary human needs to have a feeling of belonging and of connectedness, and the social cohesion that connectedness makes possible is, of course, of tremendous benefit to any society. Indeed, in the traumatic conditions in which our Europe finds itself at the present time, it's very much due to the loss of cohesion on the European streets, something which we must repair. Leonard Cohen's link to the town of Athy in particular is through his collaboration with Kildare award-winning writer John McKenna on the script for the Requiem Between Your Love and Mine, which used Cohen's songs, words and poems, and it was inspired in particular by his hope-filled lines. Behold the gates of mercy in arbitrary space, and none of us deserving the cruelty or the grace. A solitude of longing where love has been confined, come healing of the body, come healing of the mind. Poignantly, Leonard Cohen approved the final draft just 2 weeks before his own death in November 2016. I had the privilege of being among the very first to view the Requiem when it premiered at the George Bernard Shaw Theatre in Carlow in 2017. While the Requiem, of course, was also performed, and we were so grateful, in Oris and Utro 2 years ago for Culture Life. As to Leonard Cohen, thematically Leonard Cohen's work explored spirituality, politics, social justice, isolation, and romantic relationships. His lyrics expound universal human emotions, which explains how he has commanded the attention of critics and musicians, both young and old in all generations, more firmly than perhaps any other musical figure from the 1960s who continue to work into the 21st century. He managed to capture not just feelings of loneliness and loss, but also the very essence of human life and the human condition. The contradictions that constitute human life and the human condition. Cohen reminded us so strongly that popular music does not have to be made amenable to the lowest common denominator, but rather can be resolutely intellectual, subversive, and transcendental. And the Academy of American Poets in today's Poetry Day have commented more broadly on the significance of Leonard Cohen's work, saying that Cohen's mastery lies in his successful blending of poetry, fiction, and music, elucidating, as he put it, while it may seem to some that Leonard Cohen departed from the literary pursuit of the musical, his fans continue to embrace him as a Renaissance man who straddles the elusive artistic borderlines. My own view is that this is a choice that does not have to be made, and it doesn't have to be made particularly when the forms of the diverse, the different media, are respected or, as in Cohen's case, transcended. And Bob Dylan, another heterodox musical genius of similar political, social, political and cultural standing, is an admirer and has described Leonard Cohen as the #1 songwriter of their time. He identifies with great insight how Cohen's melodies often embodied a celestial character with chord progressions that are classical in shape. However, it is for his words and how they fell and lodged that Leonard Cohen is perhaps most loved. Agus tá bhór sin thar na blianta, agus cead album diaag de ceol an Scott Dilshire tin éitice, Puligiúna agus ar carta social na hair. Agus tá sé santas go bhfuil na téimi seo, is ceann sin na hárán a comsé ag déir hí. What is important, I think, however, is always to bear in mind that despite his melancholic lyrics and sombre vocal delivery, as some would say, Leonard Cohen remained an idealist and even a self-confessed closet optimist, believing in the power of an ethical, enlightened and progressive society. I often think of his lines, "Ring the bells that still can ring, forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything, that is how the light gets in." In the song Democracy, there is more than a glimpse of this, as he both acknowledges political problems, but also celebrates the hope of reforms. From the wars against disorder, from the sirens night and day, from the fires of the homeless, from the ashes of the gay, democracy is coming to the USA. Not so prophetic. And I think perhaps of incredible relevance to the technological delivery and a technological impact in society that has been eroding and often undermining whatever vestiges of privacy that are left. He made the observation in Tower of Song, the rich have got their channels in the bedrooms of the poor, and there's a mighty judgment coming. But there is a space of intimacy, he suggests, that might still remain, and in the title track of The Future, his 1992 studio recording, he recast the prophecy in a more benign and pacifist note. I've seen the nations rise and fall, but love's the only engine of survival. And coming closer to home of particular relevance, in the light of the recent tragic events in Derry, Plaque and New Zealand, is his composition Leonard for our time, in which there is an allusion to people coming together in the aftermath of tragedy to repudiate violence in an attempt to create a better future. I think of the line of one of my own poems in Irish, not through go will boss it just, or couldn't even sham. Isn't it a pity that death is necessary to get people to come together? I think that in his Villanelle for our time, Leonard Cohen puts it so well. From bitter searching of the heart, quickened with passion and with pain, we rise to play a greater part. This is the faith from which we start. Men shall know commonwealth again. We rise to play a greater part. Reshaping narrow law and art, two symbols are the millions slain. From bitter searching of the heart, we rise to play a greater part. Leonard Cohen remained fascinated by the human condition and human relationships, and commented, "It is a beautiful thing for us to be so deeply interested in each other." And note the difference between that, for example, and the voyeurism of some of the modern technological usages I mentioned. However, even when dealing with matters concentrating human relationship and sexuality, Leonard Cohen often added layers of complexity and meaning. And I think that this is, as it were, a lacework of the words, so as they might, as it were, serve as a garment of protection. Deeply moved by encounters with Israeli and Arab soldiers, he wrote the song "Lover, Lover, Lover," which can be interpreted as a personal renunciation of armed conflict, and ends with the hope that his song will serve a listener as a shield against the enemy. Cohen's crafted, powerful, emotionally resonant lyrics are often at odds with the sometimes vacuous nature and over-sentimentalized lyrics of some popular music. In more recent years, Cohen commented that he sees his music as providing a manual for defeat, as he put it. In his own words, "I think the manual for defeat is first of all to acknowledge that everyone suffers, that everyone is engaged in a mighty struggle for self-respect, for meaning, for significance. I think the first step would be to recognize that your struggle is the same as everyone else's struggle, and that your suffering is the same as everyone else's suffering. Unless we recognize that each of us suffer in the same way, there's no possible solution, political or social or spiritual. So that would be the beginning, the recognition that we all suffer." End quote. Cohen's music has touched many playwrights, not, of course, John McKenna, and also Brian MacDonald, who had launched Sincerely a Friend, a musical review based on Cohen's music in 1991. But Maid of Athy has made such a good decision in reminding of how music is profoundly interwoven with the fabric of Irish life, and has been since the very dawn of culture. And it is appropriate that you are celebrating the hospitality it has shown to music in all its genres, and musicians in all the diversity of their talents. And I welcome the fact that well-known names including Johnny Cash, Johnny Marr of the Smiths, and traditional Irish musician Lee O'Flynn have been recognised over the last number of months through Maid of Athy. And there is no doubt that Leonard Cohen has left a special and truly lasting legacy, and his large-bodied poetry, songs and prose will continue to inspire current and future generations. As anyone who had the good fortune to have been present at one of Cohen's many late career performances he gave in Ireland, and I remember having some chicken soup with him after one of those performances over the last decade, the mutual affection and bond between audience and artist, the grace with which he introduced his fellow performers was both demonstrative and palpable. And then, and you can be so proud, his work with Writer John McKenna has now reinforced his place in Irish music and culture, and it is fitting and correct that we should honour this great man of words with a plaque in his honour, and I so congratulate you for doing that. Tris Liam live as a solid of your Wintlish, agus Milena Avres Armthorpe, Simit Medinian, a minute to a quarter at I, Smithit at Holy Chair. Our focus is completely girlish and made it our own. So if I may conclude by thanking and commending the Maid of Athy team, and you have heard all of them, for this undertaking, and for creating the attractive Plaque which I will unveil a fitting tribute to the man. I think, may I just once more again congratulate John McKenna for his collaboration with Leonard Cohen and for producing the very, very fine script that he did for the Requiem, and how well you have chosen your guests, and how well I will look forward to Jack Hale performing that in a few moments. Míle buíochas fíor was I'm so pleased to have been able to come. Thank you.
Higgins, can I thank you kindly for your thoughtful and insightful speech today that seems very relevant on lots of different levels. And aside from today, I suppose anybody that any of your followers would know that arts are integral to your presidency, and certainly it has made people like me my job a little bit easier. But I'm very fortunate here in Kildare that we have a very strong support from the elected representatives who have sometimes take a leap of faith on projects like this, and I want to acknowledge that today. You might just have noticed as well our chorus of birds while you spoke, President. That was actually planned. That and the lack of rain. But I think maybe there was something a little bit heavenly about those and timely as well during the words. But I thank you sincerely for taking the time to come here today, and I think it's very appropriate. And when I introduced the Maid of Athy project earlier, I talked about lots of the people that were involved with it, and it is really a collaborative project, and I think it's appropriate then today that we're here marking a project that has really been about collaboration. And I've known John as long as I've been in Kildare, and John has moved a little bit further south now, but certainly during that time, obviously his career as a writer, a playwright, it's always involved other people. But other than the lonely process of writing, the outward piece that I have seen, and certainly as a mentor to other people, including myself, and to involve other art forms and other artists, has been very inspiring to watch, and there's been a lovely consistency and projects on a very high level. And as the President mentioned, the performance of the piece we're celebrating today, I did see that in Carlow as well, and it's something that stayed in my mind long after the night itself. So I'd like now to welcome John McKenna to give a brief introduction to the project. Thanks, John.
Oaks are on. It's cordial. It was actually coincidentally this week, 3 years ago, that the inspiration behind Between Your Love and Mine occurred, unfortunately. We received one of those phone calls that you live in dread of in the early hours of the morning to tell us that a son of a friend of ours had taken his own life. He was 14. And it wasn't the first time we had received such news. And when the anger and the helplessness and the uncertainty had passed, I thought I want to do something, not just to remember the young man who had died and all the other beautiful young men and women who have taken those sad decisions, but I also wanted to do something to celebrate the lives of those who had been left behind, of the families who have to deal with everything that comes in the wake of such a decision. And the first thing that came to my mind was the idea of a requiem. And Lucina used the phrase a leap of faith, and that's what it was. I thought it would be wonderful to create something that celebrated the memory of those who died, but also the lives of those who continued to live with what was left. And the person who came to mind was Leonard Cohen. I was fortunate to be a friend of Leonard's for over 30 years, and I sent him an email, and I suggested that we might work together on a Requiem Mass. Leonard had a sense of humour, even in the darkest times. I think sometimes people miss that, because the email came back within an hour, and it said, and I quote, "You're an agnostic Quaker. I'm a Jewish Buddhist. How are we supposed to create a Mass?" But he took that leap of faith. And over the following months, we worked on it together, and the emails went back and forth and back and forth. And by the October of 2016, we had a final script. And just 2.5 weeks before he died, I got, sometimes out of the blue, I remember from my 60th birthday, I got an email from him that said simply, "I warned you this would happen." And then at the end of October, an email came that said that he was happy with the script, and it said at the end, "If there's anything else of mine that you want to use, feel free to use it." And that was the last communication that I had from Leonard. I knew he was ill, didn't realise how ill he was, and in fact he had talked about 2 projects. He talked about the possibility of coming over for the premiere of Between Your Love and Mine, and we had talked about the possibility of staging an exhibition of his artwork in visual in Carlow. But to quote the Welsh poet R.S. Thomas, "Come," said death, choosing him as her partner for a final dance. And in November of that year, Leonard died. And it became even more important that we go ahead with this project. The next leap of faith came from the woman whom you can't see, she's behind me here, Aisling Carter. And I approached Aisling with the idea. I asked her if she would be interested in coming on board, and she did. And she did the wonderful, wonderful musical arrangements. And then we got together a cast of people from Shane Sullivan here from Athy, some people from Laois, Katie Jacques from Carlow, Angela Keogh from Carlow, Eric Butler from Carlow, but a disparate group of people who came together. We got together a crew to work backstage. Tom Kennedy, who did a wonderful lighting design for the Mass. Paul Donoghue was here, who with Chris Jack did the sound for the Mass. And that group of people, that was another leap of faith. And then we premiered it in visual, and another leap of faith which I truly appreciated. President Higgins came to the premiere. I knew from a previous conversation that he had shared that cup of soup, of chicken soup with Leonard Cohen, and I knew that he admired Leonard's work, and how appropriate it is on National Poetry Day that one poet is here to honour another. But that was a leap of faith, and a further leap of faith and encouragement came when President Higgins invited us to stage the Requiem on Culture Night in Norris and Lutheran. And so all of this came together. And I remember the first morning we walked in here. Why is the plaque here? It's here because we rehearsed here in this building. And we were here, again, another leap of faith, going back. This art centre would not be here but for the work of one woman, Brie Brophy, who worked tirelessly. And it wouldn't be here but for the support of the Methodist community. And if I remember walking in here the first morning of our rehearsal, it was a summer morning and it was cold. And I remember standing here and a thought struck me. When Leonard was going on tour, he very often previewed his work by bringing his band to psychiatric institutions in Canada and the United States. And he said they were the most honest audiences he ever played for. And I remember the phrase came into my mind as I was standing here: "This is mad, but there's Methodism in our madness." And thus it was that we rehearsed here. So for all of those leaps of faith, I am really, really grateful. And I'm so grateful to Colin Walsh, to the fact that he recognised what was happening here and that Leonard has been intruded. And I keep waiting for the lights to go out and for his voice to say, "You want it darker, well, here's the darkness." So I just want to introduce finally, there are 2 pieces of music. One where we're going to hear a very short piece because the Mass ends on a positive note, as it should. So what you're going to hear is a very short piece written by Leonard, spoken word, which will be read by Angela Keogh. And then Katie and Eric and Shane and Dave Day, who is here on drums and who was involved as well right from the word go, another leap of faith, and who also created the set for it. You're going to hear "You Got Me Singing," which is the final song, and then they're going to be followed by Jack Ell, who's going to sing appropriately "Dance Me to the End of Love." And the wonderful thing is that on Leonard's birthday this year, 21st of September, it would have been his 85th birthday, we're going to be restaging the Mass in the National Concert Hall. But we're going to be here on the 19th of September, staging it here in Athy in this building as well, and we're really looking forward to that. Gurumil Mahagwith and
courage, now we're old, to greet the sickness and the cold. We pray for courage in the night, to bear the burden, make it light. We pray for courage in the time when suffering comes and starts to climb. We pray for courage at the end, to see death coming as a friend.
Hi everybody, how you all doing? You can help me sing this one. It's one of Leonard's few sing-alongs. You're on backing vocals, basically. Your bit goes la da, la da 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 da, la da da la. Let me hear you now. Dance me to your beauty with a burning violin. Dance me through the panic till I'm gathered safely in. Let me be your olive branch, be my homeward dove, and dance me to the end of love, and dance me to the end of love. La 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 oh, let me see your beauty when the witnesses are gone. Let me feel you moving like they do in Babylon. Show me slowly what I only know the limits of, and dance me to the end of love, and dance me to the end of love. La la la. Dance me to your beauty with a burning violin. Dance me through the panic till I'm gathered safely in. Touch me with your naked hand, or touch me with your glove, and dance me to the end of love, and dance me to the end of love. La 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 la.
Anybody's religion, but certainly I think that was good for the soul regardless, so thank you kindly. So to Jack, to Angela, Shane, Katie and Eric, and to John and Ashley here, and to Dave, who has just disappeared. Where's he gone? Okay, I was going to ask him to come forward just to take a little bow. Ashley's hidden. Can all performers come forward and take a little bow? Just conscious that Ashley's here, a little bit stuff for space. Earlier, we have another little job to do today that the President has kindly agreed. So this is a series of plaques, and so we're going to unveil the plaque for the Leonard, Cohen and John McKenna project shortly. But before that, we decided to take the opportunity to acknowledge the previous recipients. So the plaques, for those of you who have seen them and you see the one outside, they're all 12-inch LPs. Anyone who's around as long as I am would know that they are actually the size of an LP. It's another one of Colin Walsh's very clever little touches that afterwards you go, oh yeah, that was really clever. So today everybody's being presented, representatives from the previous recipients with the 7-inch, which is a single version, for anyone that doesn't remember. And I would like to just mention Peter Walsh, who has made the plaques and data print, who designed them. And often we ask people to do things at short notice, and it's all been carried out with such good spirits and a great sense of calm, which is very good when you're not feeling calm yourself. So I'd now like to invite, sorry to get my list. These are just in order of the way the plaques were unveiled. I think the first one was unveiled around Halloween last year, so we've been going strong since then. So the first person that was remembered was Joe O'Neill, who was a band leader in the 1940s to 1960s, and he's been represented by his son Anthony, his grandson Joe. And so can I ask Joe and Anthony to come forward, and the President is going to present you with a replica plaque. The next plaque is for Johnny Marr, and he's a world-renowned guitarist, in case any of you didn't know, and he's famous for The Smiths and Oscar nominated for the film Inception. And he's been ably represented today by his auntie Betty Wallace, who apparently introduced him to music. Next, Manny, who is the bass player of the Stone Roses and Primal Scream, and he's been represented today by his cousins Geraldine Ryan and Kevin Farrell. Liam Ogo Flynn, who will be represented today by his wife Jane. Can I welcome Bill Hughes, our producer? Next to acknowledge Erin Kaivisto, who's a Finnish pop star who we remembered recently in a plaque in one of the buildings just on the street, and she's represented today by her mother Christine. He's already earned his stripes today, Jack L. by his sisters who travelled from England for the occasion, Jean and Connie.
Thank you very much.
Next we have the Sorrento Dance Band, who were a prominent dance orchestra in the 1940s, and they're represented by two of the band's sons, Paul and Des, and they've also travelled from London to be with us today. Today we have a plaque for Leonard Cohen, and I'd ask John McKenna to collect that one, please. President, it's not on the schedule, but I do have one other little job, but I don't think you'll mind, because I mentioned there's lots of people to thank today, and it's actually nice to have a platform, because as I mentioned, most of the plaque unveilings are outside, so they tend to be quite speedy depending on the rain clouds. So it was nice to mention all of the people involved, but as I mentioned, and as you've known in your speech, this was Colin Walsh's brainchild, and he has been very quietly driving this project, and without him we really wouldn't be here. So we just have a small token for Colin. So if Colin could come forward and
We're all squashed in here.
And Sean, whenever you're ready, and the president. Yeah, they're too close now.
Just reverse there now.
Yeah, just reverse back.
Well, would somebody go and get them? I might be the president.
For you would be a public thing, is pushing the car. The man was involved in it. John McKenna. Where's John McKenna?
Thank you, we really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
All right, see you again, John. Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
John, well done, Mr. President. Thank you very much for everything. Keep up the great work.
You're looking forward to
We don't want to run over you. There's a car behind you.
All right.
Very good on the street bits, but you know what I mean?
Thank you.
That's it.